I got episode 16 uploading to YouTube, and I just got these transmission mount all mounted in. So the bolts are in on both sides, as you can see, and the transmission bolt is in the center of the transmission mount. So the last thing I got to do is tack these in place, but I'll let you hear in a little bit. I think it's time to move to the back and start getting the rear suspension in place, and then once I get that tacked in, get everything squared up, I'll square the frame rails back into the chassis and tack these in place, and we'll be ready to pull them out and do some final welding. But first, we have to get the rear suspension all laid out and the rear frame rails done. Back working on the rear suspension today. So I found out that my arms weren't straight. So I went ahead and put in the bushings and welded this piece to the main tube. And what I found out was that in my design I didn't allow for the big tube. So I went and removed these and got these all centered now. Got the arms at 5/10 of a degree up on this end. And then I went ahead and tacked them. And what I did was you want these to be squared. So I measured from the back on this side and measured diagonals, and everything is perfectly square now. So it took about a day or two to figure it all out and re-engineer and cut and weld and grind, but we're moving in the right direction now. So now what we're working on is we've got to tie somewhere in here, about 4 inches over approximately, wherever it'll want to be, down to a frame tube that'll sit over here. So I've got some short pieces you've seen before that I'll clamp in here basically, and then run a tube up, and right in this area we'll have where that upper control arm comes. So I'll show you what I've been working on for design for that. This is what I've come up with as a concept. So we're going to do one and see how it works. So I just kind of drew a 2 3/8 by 10 box by 20 wide just to see how things would fit. And then just kind of modeled it 35 degrees off from the center line. So that'll give us 70 degrees total. So I think that'll be plenty strong enough. And we'll round the corners and stuff later, but this is just proof of concept right now. So let's see what the parts are going to look like. So I just cut some simple pieces out of steel, according to that drawing. And use the bolts and put my Johnny joint in. So now it'll sit on there approximately like that. And we'll see if that tube runs through there like it's supposed to. So let's give this a try. Well, we're finally back at it again. I had to take a couple weeks off to do some family things. So this is the rail that's going to go from the lower control arm mount up at an angle, probably 36 degrees, and then up over the rear end. So this piece here, I had to notch it in at 36 degrees, and that is going to clamp over this piece, probably right in here. So we will put a couple bends in it and see how it works. So we got the passenger side rail roughed out and tacked together. So you can see the rails about 1/2 degree down. And I wanted it at 36 degrees. And there we go. So you can see that that will be level where the notch is. Then cut out for bracket. So there is one frame rail extra long. So we'll fit that up and try to figure out how to support that. And if that looks good, we'll move on to the next one. It's the next day and we're doing our first trowel fitting. So it looks like we're pretty close. We got about 3/4 of an inch gap there, but the lines are straight. and it shows I need to come down about 1 inch, so I'll have to come in and cut out some more of that bump out that goes over the rear axle, but we should be good there. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and make the other leg for the driver's side, and we'll cut the area out over the rear axle next, and we'll keep moving forward. I'm just trying to finalize the position so that when the suspension articulates, we have enough room for the inner wheel wells and we don't hit on that frame rail. So I'll show you more next. Just finished putting the angle in the driver's side frame rail. So I got it lined up here in parallel. Got the bends lined up. And as you can see from the squares, everything lines up. So I'm very happy with that. So what I think I'm going to do is just actually trace this cutout on each side, laying it out the same way, and then I can make the final cuts in here. And I'll just cut on the line and then I can grind it to make sure everything works. But so far, very happy. Well, there you have it. With the little time I had today, I got the rails put together, and the most important thing is they fit over the tubing that I have planned to use, well, it is in the car, where the front lower control arms mount. So made it a little long here, but I'll just probably put a piece of steel in there to make up that gap and then weld that closed. But so far, I'm very happy with it. So tomorrow I will cut out that portion of the hump so that these will fit in there, and look at where the upper control arms are going to mount somewhere in here and try to get that all figured out. So back on the Pontiac today, and I've been fighting a little bit of a dilemma on these upper control arms. So I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but these are very close to the top of this frame rail, which is good and bad. If they're just going to poke out from this surface a little bit, which wouldn't be a big deal. But I've been doing some rough measurements about actually bringing them over to mount here and actually attaching them to the top of that frame rail. Again, I don't know how good this is going to work, but I've got enough length in that frame rail to actually do that, and I could even attach it on the end if I wanted to. So I might, since the brace is just tacked on, take that brace off. Everything else, is, as you can see, is just sitting on jack stands or sitting on that brace, and make up some new mounts and try it on the axle tube itself, just to kind of stiffen everything up. Otherwise I'd have to run some tubing down to here, which I probably might do anyway, and tie this into the roll cage. But the biggest problem I'm concerned about right now is, hopefully you can see this, is as this axle tilts this way, there's not a lot of room, maybe 1.5 inches at the top to the tire, which isn't in there yet. And I don't want it to scrub, so that would require me to move these in even farther and lose my strength on that frame rail. So I might try that and move these frame rails over, which I have plenty of room for, and see how that works. Because again, that rear brace is just tacked on there, so if I don't like it, I can tack it back on. Well, I got the brace off, and as you can see, they're just kind of sitting in place. I got them as far in as I possibly could towards the pumpkin. I might move those out a touch. And then just sitting on the frame rails, approximately where they would be. Now the biggest thing is the included angle between those arms relative to the center line should be 60 degrees minimum. I have 60.4 degrees. So what I think I'm going to do is make up some temporary mounts for the top to kind of fix those a little bit onto the axle, and then I can concept something here. Now right now this is low, this is going to have to go up a couple degrees, and I want to check it versus hitting onto the frame rail. I moved the frame rails in because right now they're sitting about 11 degrees and they need to be 6 degrees, so I think this will work. So we'll keep playing around with it and show you more as I continue the concept. We're back on the Pontiac again today. So I fabbed up some rear end mounts for the upper control arms and had to fit them to the tube at a 30-degree angle. And with 3 3/4 inch pieces of plywood, we got our 6 degrees. So both frame rails are over there. I'll put a frame rail over the top, make sure everything looks good, and we'll do the final fitting on those and start developing the concept for the upper control arm front mounts. Well, that's just with the frame rail set back in, and I think that's going to work just dandy. Got plenty of room here. Make sure we have plenty of room there from the mounts to the rails. But again, the rails are just sitting there right now, but I think that's going to leave us plenty of tire clearance when it articulates. Everything's at the right angle. So now we'll make the front mounts, and we can move on to the mounts for the shocks. Show you more when we get there. Well, there we have one concepted front upper control arm mount. So I had to, it's probably not going to show up on camera, but I had to relieve it into the rocker a little bit. But I think that'll be nice because I can stick or weld all the way around this plate and then weld to the rocker here. So once the frame is welded to the rocker, I can put this plate in and it'll really strengthen it up back here. Then of course I'll taper these down because these really don't do anything on each side. Give us plenty of length back, and we can move forward with that. So I'll have to chop these down just a little bit because we're at 5.1 degrees and we're supposed to be at 6. So I want it a little bit high so I can just shave those down when I get to the point. But I think we'll make sure everything else is right first. So we'll go ahead and duplicate this on the other side and we'll keep moving forward. Well, I hope the lighting works. Pulled out the upper frame rails. We don't need those right now. So I got all the mounts made for the driver's side and the passenger side. I cut in those plates on each side, as you can see, and everything seems to match. So right now I've got 60 degrees included angle between the upper control arms, and they're about 5 degrees down at the front. So I can just take some off the bottom of the plates once everything's welded in, and that will give me my 6 degrees. So very happy with that. So what I think I'm going to do now is move my way back, kind of play around with the frame rails, look where the shocks are going to go, and then start looking at mounting the fuel tank and building a kind of like a crash bar, but basically a frame rail that goes around the gas tank and something we can tie the bumper into. Show you more.